Thank you. It is often said that language is a species-defining characteristic, what makes us human. But different languages have different ways of organizing the world around us. So if I was giving this talk in Greek, I would have to specify for every noun and every word related to that noun its correct grammatical gender, masculine, feminine, or neutral. And I'd have to do this even if the noun refers to an object. If I was a speaker of Dani, I'd use one word to describe all black, blue, and green colors, and another word for all the rest. In fact, most of the world's languages don't have separate words for green and blue, and instead use a GRU term to refer to both. Munduruku speakers have number words only up to 4. Anything larger than that is described as a handful. Other languages have no exact number words at all. So the question I've been trying to answer for the past 20 years is this: what is the gravity of these language differences on our thought? This question goes right to the core of what makes us human. Do we all think the same, or are there fundamental differences in thinking between different cultures? Wittgenstein believed that the limits of his language meant the limits of his world. On the other hand, scholars like Pinker and Chomsky believe that meaning is the same in all languages. You can express any concept in any language as easily as transferring the same melody from the piano to the guitar. But is it really that easy? A translation of a poem or a novel can never reproduce exactly the thoughts, emotions, cultural details of the original. Many of us, or most of us in this room, can use a different set of sounds to express the same ideas, because we can speak another language. But how often have we felt lost in translation? How do you translate too fancy in Greek, for example? Well, I'm going to show you a clip that describes this experience perfectly.
そしてテーブルの上にはサントリーウイスキーがあります。わかりますね。感情を込めてゆっくりとカメラを見て優しく、そしてあなたの古い友達に会うように言ってください。カサブランカのボギーのように君の瞳に乾杯。サントリータイム。
He wants you to turn, look in camera. Okay?
That's all he said?
Yes. Turn to camera.
All right, does he want me to turn from the right or turn from the left?
彼の方はもう準備ができてます。それでスタートがかかった時にカメラの方に振り向く時に左から振り向けばいいのか右から振り向けばいいのか、その辺のところはいかがなさいましょうかっていうことなんですけれども。
どっちだっていいんだよ。もう関係ないんだから、そんなもの。時間がないんだよ、ボブさん。ね？だからもう早くあなたはもうテンション上げてカメラを見て、カメラ目線でゆっくりとね、パッションがカメラ目にはパッションだよ。分かった？
And with intensity. Okay?
Is that everything? I mean, it seemed like he said quite a bit more than that.
あなたの言ってることはウイスキーのことだけじゃないんだから。わかる？古い友達に会うように優しくジェントリーにね、そして心から湧き上がってくるテンション、これ忘れちゃダメだよ。
Like an old friend and into the camera.
Okay.
わかった？あなたは。
Okay, Bill Murray, genius, right? So he gives up trying to understand. The director has a very specific vision for the commercial, but it gets lost in translation. Now, in a world where the majority of its population, in fact, uses more than one language in order to communicate, the gravity of language on our thoughts takes on a new importance. Bilingual real-life experiences, captured by examples like the one I've just shown you, have convinced me that Earthlings clearly don't speak a single language. But according to some experts, the proposition that different languages have different concepts is logically impossible. Because what about bilinguals? If it were true, then bilinguals would be constantly confused and have a split personality. So here are 3 myths that I want to dispel right away. The first one is that it's impossible to think in language A while speaking language B. But in fact, this is precisely what bilinguals and second language learners do all the time. How many times have you thought in Greek while speaking English? I still do it, even though my English proficiency is very advanced. Even the translators at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs do it. Picking a fight for someone else's bar. Okay, well, this has a very specific meaning in Greek, but it's completely meaningless in English, I think, even though English words are used. Now, this error in meaning caused chaos in social media a few weeks ago, and it was immediately corrected. But it shows how it's very possible to think in one language while using the other. The remarkable thing is that the reverse is also true. I even catch myself speaking Greek while thinking in English. While I'm here, I say, Ευχαριστώ, παρακαλώ, καλή σας μέρα to Thessaloniki taxi drivers, and they're very surprised when I do that. My lab has shown evidence of this parallel processing from bilingual brain activity, using one language while thinking in the other. Greek speakers would not so easily group cucumber together with aubergine and pepper, even though they all belong to the same conceptual category, vegetables. Although the words are presented in English, the bilingual's brain activity is telling us that, in fact, they're thinking about the word's grammatical gender in Greek. And in Greek, cucumber is neutral, while aubergine and pepper are feminine. The second myth I'd like to dispel is that it is impossible to think in a hybrid manner. But don't we all think in a hybrid manner anyway, regardless of whether we are bilingual or not? In fact, it is this synthesis of concepts from different languages and cultures that we're experiencing at a geometric rate in the 20th and 21st centuries. Any language, is not static. It changes all the time. It is a synthesis of meaning between different languages in bilingual situations that is one of the key driving forces behind language change. My lab has shown that Greek monolingual brains make a huge distinction between dark and light blue, corresponding to ble and γαλάζιο, in a way that English-speaking brains don't. But bilingual brains show hybrid perception that is different from both the first language and the second language. The final myth I want to dispel is that it is impossible to think differently in a second language. Well, for many people, learning another language is like becoming another person. Many bilinguals, including myself, say that they feel like a different person when speaking their different languages. Why is that? Studies show that thinking in our first language is fast, unconscious, very often emotional. Thinking in our second language is more systematic, analytical, and rule-governed. We tend to rely more on logic than emotion. And this is natural if we think about how we learned our native or first language through our parents, caregivers, people that smothered us with love and other emotions. Second, foreign languages are often acquired in less emotional classroom contexts. The gravity of this affects the way we make moral judgments. Imagine that the only way you can save the lives of 5 people is to kill one person. Would you kill the one person, or would you do nothing and let all 5 people die? Believe it or not, your choice depends on whether you make it in your native language or in a foreign language. So in one study, people using a foreign language were much more willing, they were twice as likely, to sacrifice one life to save 5, rather than using their native language. This is a conflict between moral rules, don't take a life, and the greater good, don't let all 5 people die. Using a foreign language increases the weight of the greater good compared with moral rules. And it doesn't stop there. People have fears. One of them is the fear of flying, for example. Well, in one study, it was shown that if you think about the possible dangers of traveling by aeroplanes, you tended to perceive the risks as lower and the benefits as larger if you were thinking about it in your foreign language. So a foreign language allows us to break free from deep-seated emotional biases and think in a much more logical way. So if you're afraid of flying, think about it in your second language. You may not be as afraid. Okay, well, based on the evidence from bilinguals, we see that it's very possible for 2 minds to coexist in the same person. In fact, managing this coexistence keeps your brain healthy, because studies show that bilingual speakers show the onset of Alzheimer's and dementia at least 5 years later than monolinguals. So our languages, whether native or second or third, bear heavily on our understanding of the world and on our behavior. But how far down from the Tower of Babel do our languages throw us? What are the implications of the gravity of language for society, science, and culture? I want to show you two examples. Here's the quote I showed earlier. Now, based on this claim, I've been arguing that differences between different languages are deeper than just differences in vocabulary and sounds. But perhaps there's another, more basic question we need to ask. Why do Noam Chomsky and Steven Pinker believe in Martians? And it's not just them, it's millions of humans. Is there really life on Mars, as David Bowie sings? Well, this Mars mania has dominated popular culture in the 20th and 21st centuries with songs, movies, science fiction, novels, and so on. But the life on Mars mania started in the 19th century, when an English-speaking amateur astronomer read an English translation of an Italian work describing canals on Mars. The late astrophysicist Carl Sagan provides a description of how this happened in his 1980 book, Cosmos. So Percival Lowell, this is the English-speaking astronomer, was electrified by the announcement in 1877 by an Italian astronomer, Giovanni Schiaparelli, of canali on Mars. Canali in Italian means channels or grooves, but was promptly translated into English as canals, a word that implies intelligent design. Suddenly, the idea that there was life on Mars seemed entirely possible. Somebody must have built those canals. We've sent so many automated laboratories and missions to Mars, not one piece of evidence has been found of either canals or of life. Percival Lowell was fooled into believing there was life on Mars because a single word in his native language forced him to do so. And if a single word has such power over scientific thinking and popular culture, imagine what entire languages may do to the minds of the whole population of speakers. Which turns me to my final point. In this graph, you see the organization of the countries belonging to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. Now, economists here, in collaboration with linguists, have shown that the variation you see in the graph is down to the structure of your language and your tendency to save money. So on the left side of the graph, there are countries like Norway, Japan, and Sweden who do quite well in terms of savings. Here on the vertical axis, you see the percentage of gross domestic product that each country manages to save. On the right side of the graph, on the very end there, you see countries like the United Kingdom, the United States, and Greece, who aren't doing so well in terms of national savings. Now, these are all westernized, developed, democratic countries. So what are the differences in the ability to save? It turns out that it's all down to how languages separate the present from the future. The languages spoken on the right side of the graph, in countries belonging on the right side of the graph, force the speakers to say different things, depending on whether an event is happening now or in the future. They're so-called futured languages. So in Greek, a futured language would say something like, I ate dinner with a friend now, and I will eat dinner with a friend tomorrow. The verb changes. There is a linguistic barrier between the present and the future that makes the future seem more distant, more disconnected from the present. And because of this, speakers of these languages may find it more difficult to save for the future. The languages spoken in the countries clustered towards the left side of the graph make no such demand from their speakers. They're so-called futureless languages. So in Swedish, a futureless language, you'd say, I ate dinner with a friend now, and I ate dinner with a friend tomorrow. The verb stays the same. So in these languages, you talk about the future as you would talk about the present. And this identical way of talking about the present and the future leads you to also think about them identically. So you take more actions in the present that have consequences in the future. And it doesn't stop there. In a questionnaire given out to a number of people across a number of different countries, controlling for a range of things like socioeconomic status, religious affiliations, and so on, it was found that speakers of futureless languages were, in fact, less likely to be overweight, less likely to smoke, more likely to use condoms. What do these behaviors have in common? They all weigh more future benefits. So you're going to smoke less and save more money? Well, here's something new. Learn Japanese or Swedish, and you're on your way there. Well, this has to be proven in a laboratory, of course, scientifically, but it brings me to my conclusion here. Typically, we think of the benefits of learning a second or foreign language as giving us better job prospects or allowing us to get by on our travels if we have to ask for directions or order at a restaurant. Sure enough, those are important things. But the payoff is far bigger than we ever imagined. Learning new languages is the only way to understanding the minds of other people, come closer to understanding how they're going to behave, why they behave the way they do, and why this behavior may be different from your own behavior. You can transform others. And the amazing thing is that learning new languages will also change our behavior, allow us to become more flexible and adaptable to new situations. You can transform yourself. So learning to think in another language can change our behavior, give us a chance to communicate better, be more understanding of different points of view. But we're at the very beginning of a brave new world. In my laboratory at Lancaster, the goal for me and my colleagues is this: to train people, not in entire languages, but in specific language elements, like marking the future or not, that may change or enhance certain behaviors, like the ability to save money. Small changes can make a big difference. And if you think about it, this is how all of evolution works. In a system characterized by diversity, becoming flexible and adaptable by quickly learning new behaviors gives you more chance for survival, makes you a better organism. If we can do this for the mind, then we have truly built an indestructible Tower of Babel. Ευχαριστώ πολύ.